Good morning, all of the students and the participants on this webinar. I'm Dr. Vaseem Qureshi, Assistant Professor in English from Science and Humanities Department, Vishwakarma Government Engineering College, Chandkheda, Ahmedabad. This is a Mission English initiative, and I'm going to discuss with you about interview skills. The Mission English program was initiated with the help of the students in February 2019. During earlier semesters, we could conduct 9 sessions on working days in college, in which more than 200 students participated and got benefited. To continue with the same legacy, we have planned to give online lectures like the webinar that you are taking part in. So I begin with the name of Almighty, that this program must be useful, interesting, and interactive, so that the students, engineering students particularly from VGEC, will get benefits to be selected in interviews if they appear, right, in very nearest future. Now, interview is not a topic of 1 hour or 2 hours, right? It may have a lot of things that we need to discuss, and looking at those things, I have just taken 2 points for today's discussion, right? So this may be called part 1, right, in which I'll talk about 2 subtopics. One is let's sharpen the axe, and the second is be uncommon for common questions. I will definitely talk a lot of things from my experiences as well, right? There may be an interactive session at the end of the session, and I hope that you will have your answers. You can write your questions in the chat box. Whenever you have a question, I need to scroll all these chat messages later on when you require to get the answers. You can write your feedback on my mail ID. I'll share my email ID with you also, and you can write your questions there also. So whenever there is time in future, I'll definitely answer you about your queries. I have invited VGEC alumnus, Mr. Arjun Didania. He has already joined this session, and he will also share his views on these 2 topics. He is the Business Development Head, Texan in Corporation, and he is a pass-out student from EC branch in 2017. So I would like to begin with the slide which will talk about the plan of today. So this is the title of the webinar, Interview Skills Mission English Initiative. 2 topics will be discussed. Let's sharpen the axe. It is the preparation we usually do before interview time, and the second topic is be uncommon for common questions. So how to be unique or different for your FAQs, right? After the introduction, I'll talk about topic 1, then there may be a short exercise, then topic 2, and then we will have a short exercise, and then the invited alumnus will share his views, and later on we will have some question answer sessions, right? I have a lot of expectations, right? I've got a lot of expectations from the students or the participants, and I know what your expectations are. Still, you can write your expectations in the chat box. Now, this is the gist of topic 1. Let's sharpen the X. Abraham Lincoln says, if I had 8 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend 6 sharpening my X. Dear friends, why preparedness is very important, right? And if you look at this particular quotation by Abraham Lincoln, that if there is a big tree is given to me, I have been given an X and I have been given 8 hours to chop down that tree. So usually people start chopping. They take the axe, they gather their courage, they just go to the tree, they look at the tree and they start cutting it down. But Abraham Lincoln suggests you a different thing, right? Instead of starting the work of chopping down the tree, I would sharpen my axe for 6 hours. The more time I give in sharpening my axe, the edge of the axe will be sharper, and it will definitely help me in cutting down the tree, in chopping the tree down in a very less time. And definitely talks about preparedness, how prepared you are. And now for interviews, you need to give more time for your preparation. And I just want to begin with one more slide, and then I'll talk about the things. So preparedness is about 4 things. One is you must be well informed about the employer. Second is you have to understand how you can contribute in a job role. Third, to ensure that the first impression is the good one. And the fourth one, that is be ready with your documents and portfolio. Okay. So let's talk about all these 4. I have given a title 4 ka formula. So this is a formula in which you can have 4 components which are essential. The first one is to be well informed about the employer. Dear friends, many times the interviewees don't know who is the employer, and they may not know much about the company where they're applying for this particular role positions. So my suggestion or suggestions will be to try to know something about the company where you have applied, and specifically your job roles, right? Whatever responsibilities, whatever jobs, right? Whatever position you are applying for, right? Now, how will you get information about the company? Because that is very essential thing. Unless you don't know about the company, you'll not be able to share something about the company. Right? So you can go to company website, right? Company website is something which is very authentic about the resources, the material, the information that you are going to share in the interview. You can find out some brochures if they are available. There may be some blogs, and particularly some social network platforms. Right? So that is also very important, because social networking sites, particularly if you can find LinkedIn profile of that company, it is better, because that is a very professional website, and you can find a lot of details about the company. Why it is important to know about the company? Because that will give a kind of a connection with the company. Because I recently conducted one interview in a school. It was for high school level vacancy, and a student came, a participant came, and that candidate even did not know that she applied for high secondary or secondary level. She thought that she has to applied to that school for a primary section. So, when we inquired about certain questions, and she was totally blank. She said, "No, sir, this is not in the syllabus. This is not in the syllabus." And so, why? Because it is in the high school, syllabus. It is not in the primary syllabus. And then we realized that the candidate does not know for which section she has applied, right? So, it is very important to get connected with the company, because that is something very important, right? You can have some article reviews, or there may be some reports which may be available on the website of that company itself, or there may be reports published in some journals regarding that particular company or product or any services which it renders to the customers. You can have some newspaper items, right? There may be some news items in the newspapers, in some magazines. So kindly gather all these information regarding the employer, because that is very essential. Or you may come across some people who might be working in that company, or who might have done, right, the jobs in that company. So just try to connect with them, try to get some information, right? Get some details, what is needed, right? What is the work experience or work environment in that company, and in that way it will be useful to you. So before you go for the interview, this is the very first thing about the preparation. Try to get more information, information regarding the company, information regarding the position, right? The second thing about the company is you have to do a little bit research, right? Try to do a little bit research, particularly what is the company's need, right? What is the job position? How will you fit into it? Many time the time slots that you think are better for you may not be given by that company, because the company has the different time slots. The pay package that you might have heard through some unreliable sources, and now you apply, you are ready to give your interview, and you may excel in that interview, but later on you may be unhappy with the scenario given by those experts, given by the company officials. So try to get all these things, right? And that will give you some sort of authentic information. You have to get information, right? How you are going to fit in that position. Establish a kind of a common base of knowledge for questions. And the second thing that we are going to discuss is certain FAQs, and how can you prepare yourself to answer those questions. But at the same time, try to get maximum information. So in your answers, when you give for the other questions, you can somewhere show that you know something about your company. You exhibit that you have some ample information regarding that company, regarding the position, regarding the projects that the company has been doing. So these are some essential things. What will you know, right? The age of company, when the company was started, the services or the products given by the company. Now this is also very important, because that will give you a kind of cutting edge. It will help you to know about the products. There may be a kind of engineering company, but your role may not be exactly from the engineering perspective. It can be it can be a level, or there can be a vacancy where you need to marketize the company or the product which are products which are given by the company, or you may be in some leadership position, right? So you must be aware what products have been given by the company, what are the services given by the company, right? So you need to learn about the services and the products. And if you come across the products of your company, at the same time try to compare the products by the company with the products by the other companies as well. Because suppose you are applying to a technology devices manufacturer, you need to compare the device which is produced by your company, I mean the prospect company, with the products or the devices which are already available in the market by the other companies. So there may be a kind of a competition, right, or a comparison between two products. Try to find out competitors within the industry. Now this is also very important, and when you compare two competitors, right, or the other competitors with your company, you'll be able to have some ideas, right, regarding how your company is unique, how your company is in a leading position. If it is not even, right, you can give that kind of answers in your interviews. Growth pattern of your company, reputation, right, goodwill of the company, right? So these are the things that you need to learn about the company. If there are some divisions, some branches, some various regional offices, subsidiaries, locations, right, you can try to get all these information, because ultimately I'm not sharing the PPT right now, so it will not be visible to you. I hope that I am seen on your screen. Dhaval, is it so? Yes, okay, thank you. So whenever there is a requirement to share this, the PPT, I'll show it to you. Otherwise, I'll get the help from the PPT and I'll show it. I'll discuss about them. So when you talk about the company, when you do a little bit research, try to find out the man force, how many people have been working, not exactly in the terms of number, but an overview, how many people have been working with the company, who is who in the company, who is the CEO, who is the chairman, who are the board of directors. Get some information about them, right? Many times in your interview, when you pass certain levels of interviews, and when they are very much serious to get you in the company, right, at the end of the interview process or at the end of the those sequences, they may, right, they may ask you about these questions, right? So they may ask you to get some information from you, whether you are able to know what your company is: sales, assets, earnings, expenditures, liabilities, and a lot of things. The most important part of information regarding your company is the work culture and work ethics, right? Which kind of ethical practices your company has been doing is something in which you must have some information. Get the information from website, brochure, whatever material, whatever reliable sources you have, right? So this is something which is very, very important. The second part of the second point regarding the preparedness is to understand how you can contribute in a job role. Now, this is related to your individuality, right? Yourself with the company, and particularly it is regarding your, position. Usually in the advertisements, or if you find some sort of information regarding the job position, they give a lot of information what is required in candidates, right? Earlier they used to write that we require a trainee engineer, that's all, or into brackets you can find a particular branch of engineering. Nowadays it is not like that. If they require a very specific person, right, with specific designation, it can be like, you know, a technical assistant in this particular branch. Along with that title, they give a lot of responsibilities that you are going to have in future. So try to find out those, you know, job responsibilities, because with each responsibility they have a specific skills in the mind, and in your interviews they are going to assess those skills. So it is not randomly written, it is not just a kind of a formality where, you know, they keep certain words in their advertisement and they publish it in the newspaper, on the job portals, but they are very serious about them. When they write that they require a proactive problem solver, which word? Proactive problem solver. What does it mean? It is related to a technical, technical position. But along with that, you belong to IC branch, you belong to computer branch, you belong to mechanical branch. But are you a proactive problem solver? They want a person who has, you know, convincing skills, because after some time they want to promote you, because that is the position which requires promotion. And then there may be a position for you where you need to convince people. So you must have leadership skills, you must have communication skills. So try to find out those keywords in your job advertisement, and try to align whether your skills are related to those skills or not. Are you able to show that connectivity with that job requirement and your skills, your talents? And that is something which you need to work upon, right? So initially, to to give a kind of your contribution, to show that you are a contributor, you are going to contribute in a job role, you try to plan out your career goals. And usually before you go to interviews, you must have sent your resume, and based on the resumes which are collected by the company, you must be shortlisted. Now somewhere in your resume you might have written your career objectives, your professional objectives. Now, once again, when I talk about resume writing, I'll say that don't go to googlebaba.com and find out certain words which are very catchy, very attractive, and don't put them in your career objectives as they are, if you don't understand, if they are not applicable to you. So you try to prepare your own career objectives in such a way that in your interview, because one of the questions which usually is asked in interviews is about resume. Say something about your resume. They have studied it, but they just want you to speak something about that. Or sometimes you can have a question like, say something which is not in your resume. Now see, either what you have written in your resume or which is not included in resume, both the questions are very frequently asked questions, and they can ask you to talk about your career objectives. Right? So career objectives are very important, and those objectives must be aligned with your job requirements, right? What is expected by the employer, what is expected by the interviewers, and in a larger view, what are the expectations by that company, right? So if you are able to show that connectivity, that relevance, right, it is wonderful. Otherwise you have done a lot of things, but if you share those things which are not relevant, which are not useful, which are not applicable to that job position, I mean, it is not of any use. So dear students, you must keep employers expectations. What are the career objectives? Subject knowledge, general knowledge, communication skills, mental agility, consistency, self confidence. These are certain things that your employer will definitely try to find in you, apart from your technical knowledge, apart from your technical expertise, because you are excellent in your technical field. But that is not the only thing which is expected by the employers right now, right? And when you work for your preparation, right, for the interview, try to get all these information about yourself, about position, about the company, and try to align them with the required ones. The third thing in the preparation mode is your first impression. And I'll come to the very first question, which is always asked by majority of the interviewers, is about yourself. Just something about yourself. Self introduction. Now, dear friends, self introduction is a very, very frequent question. Very frequent. It is asked frequently. And it has two reasons. Reason number one, the uh, interviewers want you to be relaxed because you have a lot of tension, and with that tension you just enter the interview hall, and so they just want to keep you calm. And that's why the very first question is very easy, and say something about you, Mr. Qureshi. Yeah, this is your name, Vaseem Qureshi. Please say something about you. Introduce yourself. Now, majority of the candidates feel that this is the easiest question. According to me, this is the most important question in any interview. You need to work for that. When I have to say something about myself, isn't it easy? Because I know a lot of things about me, my qualification, my experience, my skills, blah, 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 blah. But as this is the first answer given by you, right, it will create the first impression. And first impression is the last impression, obviously. And that impression will keep on going with your image throughout the interview process. And in the next part, when we talk about the questions, FAQs, this is one of them that says something about yourself. Let me tell you, it is important because it will give you a kind of relaxation, because you know something about the question and you will be able to answer. So that will ease your tension, that will release your tension, right? But the second reason, according to me, is it will give a roadmap for the interview. How? So once you share something about yourself, right, it is your introduction, it will definitely show some kind of things that is applicable to you, the things which you need. You need to inculcate the things which are related to job position, but by adding those things deliberately, you will you will guide your interviewers to design the interview process. Suppose, in my introduction, usually people talk about the family background, education, college names, school names even, right? Now these are not very important things. Suppose I have done 4 5 projects during my graduation, and one of them is very much relevant to the job position I'm applying for. Now, what I need to do is I will deliberately add or include some details about that project in my introduction, because I'm very confident. I'm very confident about that project. From anywhere, if they have any question, right, later on, I will be able to answer that. So what I need to do is I will include those points in my introduction deliberately, knowingly, so that I instigate my interviewers to take some words from my introduction, and they will start hammering, kind of questions on me from that point of view. Match is fixed. I will design my interview, dear friends. I just want to share my experience when I gave my interview for this position where I'm working in VGEC, the government position, and I gave the interview for I gave my interview for this GPSC. in 2011. So the qualification which is required to be a professor was MA with English, right? Because it was an assistant professor in English, and with first class, right? At that time, PhD was not compulsory. Exactly after that, PhD was the mandatory qualification for the faculties of English. But MA, the only MA. I was MAd also, Master of Education, BEd also, and I was doing my MPhil. And I was sure that the other candidates would have either BEd, but they would not be MAd. No one would be MAd, Master of Education. Now, this was a unique qualification that I had. That was not required, but that is related to teaching methodology. That was related to how you have to teach in classrooms. And I was a professor, I was a teacher, right? I was a lecturer in Teachers Training College. So that was something different in me than the others. So in my introduction, I deliberately took those points when I introduced myself. Rather, my focus was on MA, my focus was on MA, Master of Education, how to teach. And this was taught by me to many students through my 6 years career, right, in my early professional life. And as per my expectation, the next questions for the entire 10, 15, 20 minutes, they were based on teaching methodology. They were based on how did you find to be a lecturer in education colleges. So see, that is something very important, because you are going to give you a kind of a design to your employers, sorry, to your interviewers, right? So now the question is, how should I prepare for my introduction? And literally, I had 6 years of experience at that time, sorry, 8 years of experience at that time in 2011. But I literally wrote down my answer about myself, about Vaseem Qureshi, right? I wrote down my answer. I prepared it many a times. I edited it many a times. I did a lot of rehearsal. And then I was very confident that yes, I will be able to share something about myself, deliberately keeping all those points which would make me different than the other candidates, because everyone in the list is my competitor and I wanted to be selected for this post. You know the result of that interview. I'm here with you talking about interview skills. So, write down certain answers, and by those answers, you will create good impression. So that is something which is very important. Do a little bit survey about your strengths, right? Because ultimately try to convince your interviewers that somewhere you have capabilities to fit into that role, right? Now you require certain strengths. We may discuss about SWOT analysis in future, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Right? But at the same time, you need to learn about your strengths. What are the strengths? Once again, these strengths must align your job responsibilities, job position, because ultimately they must be relevant. I will use the word relevant very much throughout this session, and in future, if we conduct interview skills part 2, I will definitely use the word relevant, because you have done a lot of things. But if the things which you are sharing are not relevant to the position, it is useless. So find out those skills, find out those strengths, find out those weaknesses. Yeah, weaknesses also. I'll come to that point later. So weaknesses relevant to the job position. Now, when you show your strengths, so in the preparation mode, try to find out your weaknesses, try to find out your strengths, and think how they are related to the job, right? Because in the interview, you have to give some examples. You can keep these strengths in your resume deliberately and in your introduction also. So in your introduction, when you talk about the strengths, definitely in future after 2 minutes, some person from that group will definitely has some questions about those strengths, about those weaknesses. Okay, so this is something which is very essential. uh, Strengths, when you get some information, some insight about your weaknesses, right, you will be able to know in which area you need to work upon, because you may have very less time, right? And during that short time, you cannot do a big change overnight, definitely. So you can have some planning to improve upon those weaker sections. Suppose your communication skills is not good, and now after 10 days you are going to face an interview. Now this is your preparation mode, and today in the morning you realize that, oh my god, my communication skills is not good, right? I cannot show this kind of skills, I don't have that ability. And these are the skills, these are the strengths which are required for that job position. You have to start working on them. So even though when you talk about your weaknesses in interview, you can deliberately convert your weaknesses into strengths by showing that you have started planning, and you have already planned and you have started working on that planning. And after certain time, you feel that you have been improving, you have been excelling in that particular weaker area. So in that way, your weakness in the interview will not be shown as a weakness only, right? Because that weakness may affect your result, right? But definitely you try to convince your employers that you are ready to adapt to new situation, you are ready to learn something new for you, and you have been showing those, positive changes in you, particularly keeping that weaker area. So these are the things. And the fourth thing in the preparedness is about your documents. You must be ready with your documents. They must be properly arranged, right? And here documents, along with the document, I also want to focus on your appearance, the way you look, the dress, the hairstyle, the costume, or the accessories which you have. So all these things are essential things when you take care of your preparedness before your interview time. Keep certain copies of your resume, certain sets of some important documents, right? There may be a briefcase or a leather folder or a plastic folder, or there is a bag in which you can keep all these things, right? If there are some recommendation letters by some references, so you can bring them with you. If you want to showcase some certificates, because when you send your resume, you cannot keep all the documents into it, right? Because it's a resume and you attach very important documents only. So you can get those things ready, and whenever it is required, if it is properly orderly arranged, it will be very easy to bring the things out. I always believe, this is my belief, I don't know whether you believe in my words or not, but always expect unexpected things in interviews. Always expect unexpected things in interviews. आपके इंटरव्यू में कभी भी वो कोई भी डॉक्यूमेंट मांग सकते हैं, ऐसा मैंने सोच लिया है. I have thought, I am absolutely convinced that they may ask me to show any document from my folder, because the interview is not about your oral verbal skills only. It is about your behavior, it is about your orderliness. So when I bring my folder with me in the interview hall, they may ask you, Mr. Qureshi, please show me that certificate that is mentioned somewhere in your resume. I'll say, yes, sir. Or that is mentioned in your introduction. I'll say, yes, sir. So please show it to me. And then I suddenly realize that there are many folders in my file, and I don't know in which folder I've kept that certificate. And I've seen that, Bharatnatyam with your hands will go on. And you don't know, right? In that AC hall, you have perspiration. you are confused, and you bring this certificate, that certificate. Now it shows that you are not well prepared with your documents. So keep the documents in proper way, be ready, whatever is required first, right? So that may be a kind of sequence. So these are the things which are required to be done when you do a kind of, preparedness. I got two questions. So what to include and what not to include in the answer of introduce yourself, right? There may be a lot of things which you can include in your introduction, but I suggest you have to include very brief introduction of yourself, talking about your qualification and the recent experience, right? If you're fresher, you cannot add it. And try to connect those employers, those interviewers, with the things which are related to your job profile for which you are applying to, right? So you can talk about some big project, you can talk about some award which you might have got just because of the project, and because that project is related to that particular job profile, right? Don't include a lot of details, a lot of data. It is not a kind of informative speech. Sir, I got 8.49 CPI, CGPA, sorry, CPI, no, CGPA. Sorry, it is not 8.45, it is 8.54. Now, it doesn't matter whether it is 8.44 or 54 because it is mentioned in your resume and you are already scrutinized. So don't worry about that. So numbers, those details, names, they are not very essential in your introduction. The second question is how to get insights of the interviewer, that what he wants from us, right? Interviewers, they are assessing you psychologically, right? So as soon as you get into the next topic, I mean, next part of this interview skills will be on verbal and non-verbal communication during interviews and what to do after interview. So there will be two more points, and I'll definitely discuss about them. As soon as you enter, your assessment begins, and they will look at you from psychological, behavioral, emotional, and many points. At the same time, when your interviewer is assessing you, if you have calm mind, if you are confident, if you are well prepared, you can do that psychological assessment of your interviewer. When you enter the hall, you can look at each one. There must be eye contact, and you will be able to know who is the supreme authority among all these five people. Can you tell me who will be the main interviewer, or who will be the main person who is going to finalize the list? So if there are five people, usually the person who is in the middle, right? Now that is psychological. There may be some different rules, but you can try to catch the messages even though they are not sent to you. And then nobody will say that I am the head of this company and I'm the CEO and he's the manager and he's the expert. No. But by looking at their behavior, you have to try to understand, right, their roles. And once your introduction part is over, you'll get a lot of questions, and gradually you'll be able to know कि भाई उनकी expectations क्या है. Their expectations may be largely about your technical skills, but as you are in interview, communication skills, interpersonal communication, convincing power, right, your work ethic, your work style, right, your honesty, your leadership skills, your team management skills, or not in leading position but as a team member, how you can contribute. So there may be a lot of particularly behavioral, right, manners, etiquettes. So these are the things which are expected by interviews, right? How to avoid being nervous. Now it will with your cool mind. You have to keep your mind cool. Even today, after having 17 years of experience, if I go to face an interview, and this Vaseem Qureshi will feel nervous. Definitely. I'm not talking as an interviewer. If my role is as an interviewee, even after 17 years of experience as a teacher in a college or in colleges, I will definitely feel a little bit nervous. Never allow that nervousness empower you, right? Never allow. Number one. Number two, never allow your interviewers that you are nervous. If you don't know the answer, you are a human being here. Feel free to say, sir, right now I don't know the answer. When you add the word right now, it means that you know the answer, but right now, just because of the nervousness or because of that you are in the interview, you are not able to answer that question. It's okay. But if you don't know the answer, don't give, a kind of an answer which is misleading, because those are the experts. They know your intention, they know your behavior, right? So if you do certain practices, if you are well prepared, if you have done a lot of rehearsals, if you have kept yourself ready mentally, emotionally stable, you will definitely avoid being nervous, right? So you can do that by that way. I want to show you one slide because it is too much time. I wanted you to do this. Look at this advertisement and find out some details about your employer. Now, software private job, TCS company, IT jobs 2020, right? We suppose it's 20. And now, these are three questions. In which year was it started? Name of the chairman, and which awards is won by TCS in August 2020. Dear friends, now I have stopped sharing my slide. So as soon as you get an advertisement, try to find out something about the company. That is very essential thing. You know TCS. If you get an admission, if you get a job in TCS, wonderful. Students, selected students distribute sweets in college, right? And we are very happy that many of our students have been working with TCS. You must know what TCS is, and this is something which you need to do. Without wasting much time, I'll just go to you just try to find out the answers. The second part of my presentation is FAQs, because we have Arjun Dedania with us, and I expect him to speak at least for 10-15 minutes, and then we will have some question answer sessions. Dear friends, the second topic for today's webinar is how to be uncommon for common questions. Margaret Mead says that always remember that you are absolutely unique, just like everyone is. So everyone is unique, and you try to give those answers confidently and in a unique way, because that would be the difference which you create, right, in answering, will keep you ahead in the race. It's a competition, it's a race. Everyone wants to win. So why don't you? You must work hard, and that's why always expect unexpected things. My first question is, tell me something about yourself, and I've already talked about that. It is the very first question. Instead of focusing on details, numbers, just try to talk about skills, right? Try to talk about your abilities, and most important, try to show how you are going to contribute to that company, to that job. Now, this is also very essential thing. That, sir, I have done this, right? And based on the skills that I have acquired, I am going to work, right? I'm going to work. I'm talking about future time in the company, right? Like this. And you can show your plan, you can show your objectives. So your objectives is not about learning, it's not about adapting to a new situation. your objectives may be somewhere in terms of your contribution also. And here is a chance where you can be unique in your answer. So that is first question. Second question is, why do you want to work here? Once again, why this particular job? Why this company? Why do you want to join TCS? And say, sir, TCS is one of the leading companies in this IT sector, and I belong to IT, I belong to computer, I want to work blah 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 blah. No, this is very common answer. When you share some authentic information about the company. So recently in August 2020, and at TCS, the company in which I have applied has received Microsoft Canada Impact Award for Excellence in Data Center Migration. I don't know much about that, right? But because I just want to give you an example. Sir, I am sure that in this particular area in which I have a little bit knowledge and experience, I would be able to share a lot of things. I will be able to learn, I will be able to contribute. Now see, why TCS is great, you have given an example. And how did you get that example? Because the initial work was done, the very first work, you did a little research about the company. And you came to know that in August 2020, in the same month, TCS received this prestigious award. Now you connect that information with the reason why TCS is great. But that information is related to you also, because you have done something as a student, as a worker in earlier job, right? As an intern somewhere, something is done related to that particular place, that particular project. So see, that award, that's why TCS is great. And sir, I have done something in the same area, so I will be able to contribute, I will be able to share. And that's why I prefer that this is the best option for me. See, in the same way, right, when it is a job specific, a particular position is there. Suppose you belong to, recently one student from power electronics department got selected in coding. There was a role in which the employee has to do certain coding, so coding was there. She luckily learned some coding. Now you belong to power electronics and you are working in IT sector, that you need to do some coding. And this question is obvious for certain students. You are from this branch, it has no relation with coding, and how do you come here? Why you have come to give the interview for this company? Sir, you do coding, I have learned coding, I love it, and now they are associated. That's all. So that relevance, once again I use the word relevance. Relevance is the only option which you can keep alive throughout the interview process, right? Whatever I'm going to share, whatever I'm going to show, whatever I'm exhibiting through my body language, through my behavior, through my resume, through my answers, whether it is technical, whether it is non-technical, everything has the quality of relevance, right? And that will make me run ahead. Third question says something about your resume. Now they must have read your resume, they have studied resume, and now they are going to talk more about your resume. Many times I found the word dynamic personality somewhere in your resume, and I ask students, what is dynamic personality? And the students fumble, they don't know. So we don't know. The word was very nice, I just got it from that website, and I have kept that word in my resume. No. Somewhere in your resume, you might have mentioned some important, relevant information, and you have skipped it in your discussion during during this resume, during this interview. So they want you to talk about that particular item of your resume. Sometimes they can ask you to say something which is not included in the resume. Now see, this is a very big question, right? Because you have added every relevant information in your resume, and even after that they are asking you to speak something which is not included. Now you must be ready with this unexpected answer. Always expect unexpected situations. Now you must be ready with something unique, something different than the others, and something relevant, right? And especially when you talk about some past incidences, try to show that you learn something from those, experiences. And you know I also suggest you to learn about writing resumes, because if your resume is inclusive one, this may be this may not be there in your interview. Now next question is your strengths and weaknesses. Once again, we have already talked about that. Try to find out the weaknesses, try to find out the strengths, start working on your weaknesses, and do not show your weaknesses as weaknesses, but show them that you have already started working on them and you're progressing. At the same time, try to find out the list of weaknesses and strengths which are relevant to the job openings. Fifth question is about why should we hire you, right? Why should we hire you? This is also very important and unique question. Once again, don't show all the things that you have done. They are not interested in your awards, accomplishments, experiences, qualifications, CGPA, blah, blah, blah. Because after knowing all these things, you have been scrutinized. You are invited for the interview, right? Don't talk about your past achievements. Here, there is a chance when you can talk about future contribution, right? Future contribution. How you are going to help company grow. And in company's growth, that is your growth. If you can show that roadmap to the interviewers, they will feel that you should be hired, right? You have to let them feel that this is the exact person they are searching for. And for that, once again, don't go to past, just think about future. Show how you are going to add value to the work. What is your work style? Once again, the sixth question is yourself in next 5 years or 10 years. 10 साल के बाद वसीम कुरैशी कहाँ होगा? And usually many people, they talk about the personal growth, right? And there may be a very big picture or there may be a very narrow picture. You must be realistic, and with your personal growth, try to show them that you have already been selected, and for the company, right, you have a developmental growth after 5 years. So there will be development of your company and development of yourself as a within the company, right? So in that way, you see, it will be again relevant if you show them where you will be in 5 years. Next question is conflict or stress at workplace. Have you ever experienced, and how did you deal with it? Now, usually when we talk about our past experiences, past job experiences, somewhere you must have some sort of experience. Never show the negative side of it. Never show that other people were involved in creating certain situations. Never blame anyone. If it is true, even don't do that. Try to show in a very short, right? Try to show what happened, how you looked at the situation, what were the solutions, and what is the happy ending, and what you learned, right? Because in any job, stress is unbound condition. It will be there. It will be there. As a teacher, I have to speak. That is, ultimate condition. So if there is a job, if there is a business, if there is an entrepreneur, if there is a startup, stress will be a part of our life. And you need to overcome that conflict situation or stressful situation. And it must be there in our life. What you need to do is try to get certain answers ready earlier, but try to get that experience which is relevant to the job, right? And there must be happy ending, because either the problem is resolved by you or by some others is happy. But the happy ending in a case, your learning, your abilities which are enhanced, right? And then you can show how you are going to utilize those things for this job. Question number 8: what did you like the most and least in your previous job? Suppose you have some experiences, share some good stories and bad stories. You may be happy when you share good stories, and if it related to you, you will be happy, right? You can do, but try to involve other people, or take the stories in which other people have been involved. And when it is bad story, don't take a story where you were frustrated, or you were treated unjustly by your boss, because ultimately you are blaming someone else. But if there is frustration, if there is a stressful situation, if there is something in which you something which is you disliked, you can again convert that bad story into the good story, right? With the happy ending. So that can be deliberately done. You can, if you are fresher, you cannot talk about that, but you can share something about your college life. What do you find are the most difficult decisions to make, right? Suppose in your earlier job, if you have taken some decisions, or if you are going to take some decisions, what part of decision may be difficult for you? Once again, this is a very tactful question, right? You got less salary, and that's why you are shifting from that job to this job. You cannot say that, sir, I have to take a decision about salary, because salary is something which everyone should get more than they expect. But instead of that, you can answer in a very different way, right? Taking some genuine decisions which you might have taken, or there may be some genuine decisions in terms of growth, development, research of your company, in your company, about people, right? And about customers also. So deliberately you can think about it, and you can take a decision. You can quote of an experience if you have any. Then expectations from your team. This is the last question from my side. What do you expect from your team? Expectations from your team, and how you would mold the team more. If you are a team leader, what you expect from your team members. And if you are a team member, what expectations do you have in your mind about your boss, right? And how you are going to fulfill those expectations which are raised by your team leader. So that is reciprocal, right? It is give and take strategy. So whatever expectations I have about my team members, I should have same expectations. I should fulfill those expectations being a leader, right? So in that way, you can be ready with certain questions. There may be some types of questions in interviews, like behavioral, opinions, feelings, knowledge, sensory, some background, etc. How would you handle working on 3 tasks that are all due at the same time? It shows your time management, right? I have certain questions. What kind of questions should we ask at the end of the interview? So definitely it will be discussed when I'll take the part 2, because that will be the discussion which we have during the interview. But at the end of the interview, you can ask certain questions to the interviewer if they ask you to ask. Number 1, usually interviewers may ask you at the end of the interview Do you have any question? Never ask about salary. The next question is about salary. Sir, what about salary? Should we start talk about it or wait for them? So never begin or never ask for salary. Never show that, sir, I want to say something and I expect this salary, right? You can talk about, when there is a time when you need to ask a question to the interviewer at the end. Suppose you have a kind of a feeling that you will be selected by the interviewers, you can ask about some, developmental or contributorship. You can ask about a project, and you can inquire about the project, which is for which you are going to be selected for. So for particular project they require an engineer. There may be a lot of discussion about the project, but if you have to start working for that particular project, you can ask about those particular job openings, job requirements, right? So but still, i uh, I take this question for the next session, and we'll discuss about it in the next session. So this is the end of my part. I have certain videos from YouTube, and I'll share the link very soon. I want to invite Arjun Didania, right? Uh, Arjun is a very nice guy. I taught him CS during his first year, and we have been connected throughout the years. And he will share his views, right? So I'll just request him. He's the business development head at Texan Incorporation. His office is very near from VGEC in Chankheda, and he's 2017 pass out from EC branch. So Arjun, thank you for being with us, and now over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. First of all, for inviting me here. I really feel privileged talking here and connecting with all the young students. So now, coming to our session, it was really very informative, and all the points. I would like to say this to all the students present here. That every point which sir has explained, they are golden points actually. This is the actual need, and these are the actual points which any industry person would be looking for.